The first thing Sienna James noticed when she opened the door was the little girl sitting on the front steps, her tiny sneakers scuffed and pink backpack leaning against her leg. "Hey, sweetheart," Sienna said gently. "Are you lost?" Before the girl could answer, a man stepped around the moving truck parked out front, paint-splattered jeans and a worn gray t-shirt clinging to his frame. He had a roller in one hand and a coffee in the other. His dark hair was messy, his jaw unshaven, and his brown eyes locked on Sienna like he hadn't expected her to be standing there. "Harlow, what did I say about staying close?" he said, his voice warm but tired. He looked up at Sienna, his expression apologetic. "Sorry," she gets curious. "I didn't think anyone was home yet." "I just got here," Sienna said, still watching the man. "You must be the painter." "Yeah, Felix Foster," he said, shifting the roller to his other hand so he could shake hers. "I'm with Foster Interiors, it's just me small business." "I'm painting the nursery," she nodded slowly. "Right, my assistant booked it, said you came highly recommended." Harlow stood and tugged on her dad's shirt. "Daddy, I'm hungry." "All right, baby," he said, crouching to her level. "Let me finish the first coat, then we'll get some lunch, okay?" Sienna's eyes flicked between them. He couldn't be older than 35, and yet there was something grounded in the way he moved, like he'd been carrying the world on his back for years. "She's your daughter." "Yeah," Felix said, running a hand over his face. "Single dad, juggle what I can. You brought her to a job site. No choice, sitter bailed last minute. I never bring her, but he looked embarrassed. You were the only client on my schedule today. I figured since it's just a nursery, maybe I could get away with it." Sienna looked at Harlow again. The girl was fiddling with the zipper of her backpack, quiet but clearly hungry. "And tired. How about this?" Sienna said. "There's a guest room down the hall. It's got a TV. You can set her up in there while you paint. I'll order lunch for both of you." Felix hesitated. "That's not necessary, I insist," she smiled. "You're doing me a favor by being here on such short notice." He blinked, then nodded slowly. "Thank you." As Felix walked inside, Harlow trailing behind him with sleepy eyes, Sienna watched them carefully. She had no idea why her chest felt tight. She didn't mention that she was the CEO of her own company, that she owned the house outright, that the baby whose nursery he was painting didn't exist, yet she hadn't told anyone but her assistant about the adoption paperwork. She'd filed last month. It wasn't his business. But something about the way he held his daughter's hand made her want to sit down and ask him everything. An hour later, the smell of fresh paint filled the air. Felix was working in quiet focus, brushing soft pink across the far wall. Harlow was curled up on the couch in the guest room watching cartoons, a plate of grilled cheese beside her. Sienna brought him a bottle of water. "You're good at this," she said. He glanced over his shoulder, paint on his cheekbone. "Thanks, been doing it since I was 16. My dad owned the business before me. Family business he passed 2 years ago. I kept it going, barely." She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You always paint nurseries. Mostly accent walls and kitchen remodels, but nurseries pay well. People get sentimental." He paused, eyes flicking to her. "You expecting?" "Not in the traditional sense," she said, smiling faintly. "Adoption, it's complicated." His gaze softened. "That's brave." She looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. Most people said things like, "That's sweet," or "How nice." Not brave. "What about Harlow's mom?" she asked carefully. "Gone," he said simply. "She left when Harlow was 2. Haven't seen her since." "I'm sorry," he shrugged. "I'm not. It hurt at first, but I'd rather raise Harlow alone than let her grow up around someone who didn't want to stay." Sienna swallowed. There was something about his honesty that hit her deeper than it should. She wasn't sure what it was, maybe the fact that he wasn't trying to impress her. He had no idea who she was, and that made it easier to breathe. Over the next few days, Felix kept coming back to finish the nursery. Each time Harlow came too, and each time Sienna found herself lingering longer in the doorway, watching them. On the third day, she came home from a meeting to find Felix on a ladder adjusting a gold mobile above the crib. Harlow was sitting on the rug with a book. The room was nearly done. "You decorated too?" she asked, stepping inside. Felix looked down. "I saw the boxes in the hallway, figured I'd finish the job right." "You didn't have to. I wanted to." He climbed down. "Besides, it looks better this way." She looked around the room. It was warm, soft, gentle. Like it had been lived in already. I didn't think I'd feel this connected to it, she admitted. But now I do. You should, he said. You're gonna be a great mom. Her throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know you cared enough to feed my kid. Let her nap in your house. I know you didn't flinch when I said I was a single dad. That tells me a lot. She looked at him, really looked at him. There was paint on his arms, a small scar near his temple, and a quiet steadiness in his posture. You're different, she said. So are you. That night, after Felix and Harlow left, Sienna stood in the nursery alone, running her fingers over the edge of the white crib. She hadn't meant to feel this. She hadn't meant to wonder what it would be like to have him beside her, raising a child together. She barely knew him. But when he looked at her, it wasn't because of her money or her title or her house. He looked at her like she was just Sienna. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure being alone was what she wanted anymore. On Tuesday afternoon, a thunderstorm swept in without warning. Sienna had just kicked off her heels in the foyer when a sharp knock echoed through the hallway. She opened the door to find Felix holding Harlow on his hip, both of them dripping wet beneath a flimsy umbrella. "Power's out at our place," he said, brushing rain from his brow. "I was halfway through packing up when the circuit blew. Sorry to drop by unannounced." Sienna stepped aside instantly. "You're not intruding." Harlow shivered against his chest, cheeks flushed. Sienna reached for the girl gently. "She's burning up," she said, worry tightening her voice. "Fever started an hour ago. I was trying to get her to the urgent care, but the roads are a mess. My truck stalled in the driveway. Come inside. Let's get her warm." Felix hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Thank you." Sienna led them upstairs to the guest bedroom. She pulled a thick comforter from the linen closet, while Felix changed Harlow into one of the oversized t-shirts from his backpack. The girl's eyes fluttered open briefly before falling shut again, her breath shallow but steady. Sienna sat beside the bed, brushing damp strands from Harlow's forehead. "She needs fluids and rest." "I'll stay with her," Felix said, lowering himself to the edge of the mattress. "You've already done too much. I'm not leaving you to handle this alone." He looked at her then, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that had nothing to do with courtesy. "Do you have any children's medicine?" she asked. "I brought some." But she wouldn't take it earlier. Sienna stood. "Let me try." She returned with a small spoon and coaxed the syrup into Harlow's mouth with a practiced patience that made Felix's chest tighten. His daughter settled under the blanket again, her breathing evening out. "You've done this before," he said softly. Sienna leaned against the doorway, arms folded. "My sister was sick a lot growing up. Our parents worked late. I took care of her." He nodded slowly. "You don't talk about your family much." "I don't talk about a lot of things." Felix stood and moved toward her. "Is that by choice or force of habit?" "I'm not sure anymore," she said. The storm rumbled closer. Lightning cracked the sky outside, illuminating the hallway in a flash of pale blue. Sienna didn't flinch. "You're calm," Felix said. "I've had to be." His jaw flexed slightly. "You always carry yourself like nothing rattles you, even when your house is full of strangers and a sick kid shows up on your doorstep." "I've been rattled plenty," she said. "I just don't let it show." "And what would happen if you did?" Sienna didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice quiet. "Maybe someone would finally see the real me." Felix's expression shifted, something unguarded breaking through. "I see you." She blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. He didn't reach for her. He didn't push. He simply stood there a few feet away, offering nothing but truth. A beat passed before she turned away. "I'll make some tea," she said. Downstairs, the kitchen was warm despite the rain. She lit the gas stove manually and filled the kettle. Felix joined her a few minutes later, wrapping a dry towel around his shoulders. "She's asleep," he said. Didn't even stir. Sienna poured 2 mugs of peppermint tea and slid one across the counter. "You okay?" "I've handled worse nights," he said, "but not often with this kind of landing." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" I expected to be stuck in my truck with a wet kid and no reception. Not here, not with someone like you." She sipped her tea. "What does that mean, someone like me?" Put together. Sharp. "Looks like she belongs in a glass office with a city view, not handing out grilled cheese and cough syrup." Sienna raised an eyebrow. You think I don't know how to take care of people? No, he said quickly. I'm saying I didn't expect you to. Most people wouldn't. She leaned back, studying him. Maybe you need new expectations. Felix laughed under his breath, not mocking but surprised. You're full of curveballs, and you're full of assumptions. They fell into a silence that wasn't uncomfortable. The rain softened outside, tapping rhythmically against the windows. Felix stared into his mug, fingers tightening around the ceramic. I haven't had help in a long time, he said eventually. I forgot what it feels like. Sienna's gaze dropped to his hands, calloused, weathered, strong. You don't have to do it all alone. I've never had a choice. You do now. He looked up, and the air between them shifted, something heavy but unspoken pressing close. Sienna stood, breaking the moment before it could crash into something else. I'll get blankets. You can stay here tonight. You sure? I wouldn't offer if I wasn't. He followed her upstairs, quiet and measured. She laid out the linens on the pull-out sofa in her home office, gesturing to the closet. There's extra pillows and towels in there. And a toothbrush still in the wrapper. He watched her move with a grace that didn't feel rehearsed anymore. She wasn't performing. Thank you, he said. She paused in the doorway. You don't have to thank me. I do, he said, because this isn't just kindness. This is more. She didn't look back, but her voice was softer when she answered. Good night, Felix. Good night, Sienna. As the storm faded into the distance and the house settled into stillness, neither of them slept easily, not because of the rain, but because something had shifted and they both felt it. They just didn't know what to do with it yet. The morning sunlight filtered through gauzy curtains as Sienna stepped into the kitchen, hair still damp from a shower, her robe pulled tight at the waist. The smell of toast and eggs drifted through the air, and for a moment she thought maybe her housekeeper had come early until she saw Felix at the stove, barefoot in jeans and a gray thermal shirt, humming softly as he flipped something onto a plate. You cook too, she said, surprised. Felix glanced over his shoulder and offered a quiet grin. Didn't think it was right to leave your fridge untouched after crashing here all night. She stepped closer. You found the eggs. I found a lot more than that. You've got truffle butter and 3 kinds of sea salt. I like options, she said, leaning against the counter. He set 2 plates down. Hope you're okay with eggs over medium. I'm okay with not having to cook, she said, sitting across from him. Where's Harlow? Still asleep. Fever broke around 4. She's breathing better. I didn't want to wake her. Sienna nodded, then picked up her fork. You didn't have to do this. I know, but you didn't have to open your home to us either. There was no tension in the way he said it, just quiet gratitude, unadorned and real. She took a bite, then paused. Do you always take care of people without being asked? His brow lifted. Do you always let strangers stay the night and then make them breakfast? She laughed softly. Taché. They ate in a comfortable rhythm, the silence filled with clinking utensils and the occasional low rumble of the espresso machine warming up. Sienna stood to pour them both coffee, placing 1 mug in front of him. You work with your hands, she said. But you carry yourself like someone who used to do something else. Felix looked up. How'd you guess? You don't look at walls the way a painter does. You look at them like you're building something. He leaned back slightly. I used to do carpentry, residential framing. Then Harlow came along and schedules got harder. Painting was easier to manage solo. She sipped her coffee. You miss it? Every day, he said, but I don't regret the trade-off. Sienna watched him. You make decisions like someone who's had to grow up quickly. You're not wrong, she hesitated. What was it like taking over the business after your dad passed? Felix set his mug down, fingers tightening slightly. It was chaos. He had debts tied to the company. I didn't know until I was knee-deep in invoices. Took months to clean it up. I had to sell the truck he left me just to pay off a lien. You didn't walk away. I thought about it, he admitted. But then I saw Harlow playing with one of his old brushes. She dipped it in water and started painting the sidewalk. I figured, maybe I could fix what he broke. Sienna felt a sharp tug in her chest. You're not just fixing walls, you're rebuilding something bigger. He met her eyes. Maybe. But some things stay broken. The air between them shifted again, heavier. I used to think that, she said quietly. Until I realized what I thought was broken was just unfinished. Felix studied her for a long moment. You ever let anyone help finish it? No, she said. But maybe I should have. Before he could respond, footsteps padded down the stairs. Harlow appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, hair tangled from sleep. "Daddy?" Felix was up in an instant, crouching to her level. "Hey, baby, how do you feel?" She leaned into his chest. "Thirsty?" "I've got juice," Sienna said, already moving toward the fridge. As she poured, Harlow looked up at her shyly. "Did the rain break your house?" Sienna smiled. "No, sweetie, my house is strong, like you," Harlow said. Sienna faltered for a second, caught off guard by the small, earnest voice. "That's very kind of you." She handed her the juice and turned away before her expression could betray the sudden tightness in her throat. Felix lifted Harlow onto one of the kitchen stools and took the seat beside her. "I think she likes you." "I like her too," Sienna said, steadying her voice. "She's smart." "She gets it from her mom," he said, then paused. "The good parts anyway." Sienna didn't press. Instead, she pulled out a small tin from the cupboard and opened it to reveal a polished wooden puzzle. "Would you like to play with this while your dad finishes breakfast?" Harlow's eyes lit up. "Yes, please." As the little girl got to work, Sienna moved to the sink, quietly rinsing plates. Felix joined her, drying with a cloth. "She doesn't open up to people easily," he said. "But she did with you." "I'm not sure what I did." "You were kind without trying to be something you're not." Sienna turned slightly, eyes meeting his. "And what do you see when you look at me?" He didn't hesitate. "Someone who's used to building alone, but maybe doesn't want to be alone anymore." She didn't answer. Not with words. Instead, she reached into the drawer beside her, pulled out a key, and placed it in his hand. "What's this?" "For the side entrance," she said, "in case there's another storm. Or you just need a place to breathe." Felix looked down at the key, his jaw taut. "That's not just for emergencies." "No," she said softly. "It's not." He closed his fingers around the key, his voice low. "This is starting to feel like something real." "It is," she said. "And that scares me." "Me too," he whispered. Harlow's voice rang out from the counter. "I finished." They both turned, and the moment broke, but not completely. The undercurrent remained. Sienna walked over and admired the puzzle. "You're very talented. Daddy says when I grow up, I can build real things." Felix smiled. "Only if you promise to teach me how to do it better." Sienna looked at them both, this perfect, imperfect picture, and something inside her shifted. She wasn't just building a nursery anymore. She was building a future. 2 weeks later, Sienna stood at the back of a school auditorium, her arms crossed tightly over her waist as a crowd of parents shuffled in around her. The room buzzed with chatter, folding chairs screeching against the floor. She was overdressed in a navy blouse and tailored trousers, but she hadn't had time to change after her board meeting. Not that it mattered, her eyes were only on the stage. Harlow stood near the front row of children in a hand-painted cardboard crown, her curls pulled into 2 puffed ponytails, pink sneakers bouncing as she rocked on her feet. Felix crouched beside her, helping her adjust a paper sash that read "Kindness Star." "I can't believe she invited me," Sienna said quietly. "Of course she did," came a voice beside her. She turned and found Felix standing there, a folded program in his hand. He wore a clean white button-down, sleeves rolled to his elbows, paint still clinging faintly to his wrist like a signature he couldn't wash away. "I thought you were with her backstage," she said. "I was. She ordered me to come get a good seat," he replied. "You always this nervous?" "I'm not nervous. You keep checking your watch like you're waiting for a fire drill." "I'm not used to this kind of thing," he nodded. "Neither was I. The first time she had a school thing, I showed up with my shirt on inside out." She cracked a small smile. "I can't picture that." "You'd be surprised what you can't picture until it's standing in front of you making you pancakes with glitter glue on her hands." The lights dimmed slightly, and the principal's voice echoed through the speakers. Felix gestured to 2 open seats. "Come on. She'll be looking for you." Sienna followed him down the side aisle, her heels clicking softly against the tile. She sat beside him, watching as Harlow spotted them and waved so hard her crown nearly slipped off. Felix leaned closer. "She made that crown herself. Said she wanted to wear something brave." Sienna blinked quickly. "She is brave." "Yeah," he said, eyes on his daughter. "She is." The ceremony was brief. Harlow beamed the entire time, especially when her name was called. She didn't hesitate to hug the principal, then skipped back to her place with the confidence of someone twice her size. Afterward, as the auditorium emptied, Harlow ran to them, arms flung wide. "I saw you," she said, launching herself into Felix's embrace before turning to Sienna. "Did you see me smile really big?" "I did," Sienna said. "You lit up the whole room." Harlow leaned into her side and whispered, "I wanted you to be proud." Sienna's throat tightened. She knelt, brushing a curl off the girl's forehead. "I am, Harlow." "So proud." Felix watched them, something unreadable flickering in his expression. When Sienna stood again, he reached for her hand without thinking, and she didn't pull away. Outside, the air was crisp with the faint scent of spring flowers. Harlow skipped ahead on the sidewalk, swinging her little backpack. "Can I tell you something?" Sienna asked. Felix glanced over. "Anything?" "I've been thinking about what you said, about fixing things." He slowed his steps. "This house," she went on, "this nursery. I thought they were the last pieces of something I'd already built, but they weren't. They were the beginning." Felix stopped walking. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want to build a life that doesn't have you both in it." He looked down at their joined hands. "You're sure?" "I've never been more certain of anything." Felix exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding a breath for weeks. "I thought I'd have to earn a place in your world," he said. "You already have," she said. "And it's not my world, not anymore. It's ours." He stepped closer, their bodies just inches apart. "You really mean that?" She nodded. "I want a life that looks like this, like her smile when she sees you, like breakfast with you in my kitchen. Like messy paint on clean walls and laughter in every room." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the key she'd given him, the one she hadn't asked about since that morning in her kitchen. "I've been carrying this," he said. "But I didn't want to use it unless I knew it opened more than just a door." "It does," she whispered, and then he kissed her. It wasn't rushed or uncertain. It was full and steady and real, the kind of kiss that didn't ask for permission because permission had already been given in every look, every gesture, every unspoken promise. When they pulled apart, Harlow was watching with wide eyes. "Are you going to get married now?" Sienna laughed. "Not today. Maybe one day," Felix said, lifting his daughter into his arms. Sienna looked up at both of them, heart full in a way she'd never known was possible. "Let's go home," she said. And this time, when they walked away from the school, they didn't walk separately. They walked as a family. The late afternoon sun poured through the tall windows of Sienna's living room, casting honeyed light across the hardwood floors. A soft jazz record played in the background, the kind Felix had brought over from his tiny collection, the ones with crackling edges and handwritten labels. Harlow sat cross-legged on the rug, building a castle out of wooden blocks, humming tunelessly to herself. "You're going to run out of towers," Felix said, walking past her with a laundry basket, "unless you want a castle with a flat roof." "It's a magic castle," Harlow declared. "It grows when you believe in it." Felix laughed under his breath. "Of course it does." Sienna folded a dish towel in the kitchen, her eyes flicking over to the two of them. "She gets more imaginative every day." "She gets more comfortable every day," Felix said, setting the basket down. "With you, with this house, with us." Sienna didn't answer right away. She walked over, brushed past him with a soft glance, and crouched beside Harlow. "If your castle had one special room, what would it be for?" Harlow pressed her lips together, thinking. "A room for wishes." Felix leaned against the counter. "That sounds about right." The doorbell rang before Sienna could respond. She pushed to her feet and opened the door to find a courier dressed in navy, holding a sleek silver envelope. "For Miss James," he said with a nod. Sienna signed quickly, then closed the door and stared down at the envelope. Her name was handwritten in thick ink, the seal embossed with the logo of the state adoption office. Felix stepped forward, his voice low. "Is that?" She nodded. "The final review," Felix stilled. "Do you want to open it now?" She turned it over in her hands, then looked toward Harlow. "I think I've waited long enough." She opened the envelope slowly, careful not to tear the edges, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Her eyes moved across the page, her breath catching. "It's approved," she whispered. "Everything's finalized." Felix let out a long breath, and Harlow looked up from her castle. "What's finalized?" Sienna crouched again, this time eye level with her. "It means I get to be a real mom, just like we talked about." Harlow blinked. "But you're already real." Sienna blinked rapidly, her throat tightening. "Thank you, sweetheart." Felix crouched beside them and wrapped his arms around both. She's right. You've been real all along. Later that evening, with dinner cleared and Harlow tucked into bed after demanding a third bedtime story, Sienna stood on the balcony off her bedroom, her hands wrapped around a glass of red wine. The city lights twinkled in the distance, filtered through the trees that lined the back of the property. The stillness felt earned. Felix stepped out behind her, quiet as usual. He slipped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. I was thinking, he said, his voice low against her ear, about what you said the other day, about building a future. She tilted her head toward him. I meant it, I know, which is why I called in a few favors this morning. She pulled back, narrowing her eyes. What did you do? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I registered Foster Interiors as a limited company, with a second division Foster plus James design. She blinked. You want to partner with me? I want to build something that's ours, he said. Not just a company, a life, a name, a home. I've been doing it alone for so long, I forgot what it felt like to build with someone who believes in me. Her chest swelled. I do believe in you. Then believe this too. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. It's not about the ring, it's about the world I want to build with you inside it. She opened the box slowly. The ring inside was delicate, a single emerald-cut diamond set in a gold band engraved with tiny stars, not flashy, not loud, like him quietly extraordinary. Yes, she said before he could even ask. He laughed, kissed her, and the glass of wine nearly tipped in her hand as she threw her arms around him. That night, she didn't sleep alone, and in the morning, she woke to the sound of tiny footsteps padding into the bedroom. Is it breakfast time? Harlow asked, climbing onto the bed between them. Felix pulled her close. Only if you help me make pancakes. I want them shaped like stars, she said, already snuggling against him. Sienna laughed softly. We can do that. Months passed. The nursery became a child's room filled with books and wall murals and drawings taped to every surface. The guest room turned into a study for Felix, where he sketched designs and drafted blueprints in between jobs. And the kitchen became the heart of the house, where pancakes were flipped every Sunday, and tea was poured in the afternoon sunlight while Harlow chattered about school and fairies, and her growing collection of sidewalk chalk. On a crisp spring morning, with wildflowers blooming in the backyard, Sienna and Felix stood hand in hand beneath a white arch wrapped in ivy. Their wedding was small, just family, a few friends, and one very proud flower girl who insisted on sprinkling confetti instead of petals. As they exchanged vows, Felix looked at her like he was seeing every version of their journey at once. The woman in the doorway of a half-painted nursery, the one who held his daughter with effortless tenderness, the one who handed him a key and changed everything. I never thought I'd build anything beyond survival, he said, but you showed me what it means to build love. Sienna's voice was steady, her smile trembling only slightly. You didn't just paint my walls. You filled the empty spaces I didn't know were still waiting to be lived in. They kissed to the sound of applause and laughter, and Harlow shouted, now we're really a team, and they were. That night, the three of them danced barefoot in the backyard beneath string lights, with cake on their fingers and music echoing into the trees. Felix twirled Harlow in circles, and Sienna watched them both with tears in her eyes, knowing with absolute certainty this was the life she hadn't known she needed, a castle made of faith, a family made of choice, and a forever that felt like home.